leave a Damon Price 4-6.
Okay. To be going live in a second. So hold up, guys. Yeah, same. I hit live over here. So we're gonna be talking about the insane deal that Mark Cuban gave a college kid, and it's gonna be an interesting conversation. So make sure you stay tuned.
That asked.
Yeah, right.
All right, I'm looking for you in the.
Right. So I want to make sure people can see me. All right. You see me well? Oh, you don't? Okay. Let me go ahead and fix that. Okay. Is that better? Nothing yet? Okay. Oh, all right. Perfect. Getting this thing to work. So we should be live on basically all the platforms right now: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And we're going to have an interesting conversation. But yeah, I guess you want to just get into Andy? All right. Yeah. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about just the deal that Mark Cuban gave like a college kid, right? Fernando is the person's name, and he has basically the dilemma of still to play college basketball or going to the NFL. And most people would look at it like, why wouldn't you just go to the NFL, right? When it comes to like you're going to get paid a lot more money going to the NFL. But Mark Cuban came up with a crazy deal to say that if he stayed one more year in college, he would get a $40 million payout. But like allegedly, at least we're not 100% sure on these things, but it's a pretty good deal. Hmm. 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 Yeah, most likely like maybe even a majority of it, right? And to me, I look at that, right? If he's actually going to get paid somewhere in the sum of like 80% or 70% of that, let's say, right? It doesn't make any sense for him to not take that deal over the NFL for one more year, in my opinion, right? From a financial perspective, at least. Because you have to remember going into the NFL, not your career isn't as guaranteed, especially with the tackling and everything. You don't know if you get injured. You're dealing with people that are more skilled, faster, stronger. There's a lot of risk when it comes to that, right? And also, you're not going to be getting paid 40 million in your first year. No matter most of the time no matter how good you are, that's not going to be your first lump sum payout, right? So, in terms of a pay perspective, right, you're getting like Fernando would be getting paid a lot more staying in college, considering that lump sum, and also he'd be playing less games. So per hour, he's just getting paid a lot more, and it's a lot less risk, if you ask me. So for me, I think it's a clear decision to stay that one more year. I mean, the NFL is still going to be there for him, in my opinion. If he's good last year, he's not going to all of a sudden turn garbage the next year. That's not how it really works. So I think. Yeah, I believe he declared for the draft, so he's not going to be taking that deal. So, but there's a lot of things. Well, yeah, I mean, either way, is like the kid is going to be well off, right? He's going to be making millions of dollars. It's just a matter of how well off, really, when it comes down to it. Um, and I think when there's a certain amount of money, like we kind of had this conversation before with like professional athletes in general, when you make a lot of money like that, when you make a high income like that, it it doesn't really make sense to take risks. Like when you make a certain amount of money like that, like you should be a lot more conservative when it comes to your money versus being more aggressive and trying to make a higher return. And we kind of hear about these things sometimes with like sports betting and stuff like that, right? Your athletes even taking advantage of sports betting, playing their games. To me, it doesn't really make sense because they're younger, so maybe they don't understand these financial concepts yet until they get older. But um, like if after a certain point, it really doesn't make sense to increase like to take extremely risky like bets when it comes to just opportunities in general, investments, and obviously gambling is that's pretty risky. It doesn't really make too much. It's not going to improve the quality of your life, and also you put yourself at a potential of losing a lot of what you built. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and um, yeah, I mean, if you actually think about it, he could have took advantage of a good opportunity to spend more time with his family and make more money, right? So it's kind of the best of both worlds, and um, and there's just plenty of different strategies he can do in terms of just making sure like he doesn't have to work a day in his life even after he's retired, right? Even after he's done playing in the big leagues. Like when you make that type of money, life changing money like that at a young age, in reality, you really shouldn't have to after your career is over, you shouldn't really have to work again, right? I know we kind of hear some of these stories with, I believe, Odell Beckham Jr. talking about how, like, $100 million contract, or I don't remember exactly what he said, 150 million or something like that, is not enough for some people. It's like you you pour water in like in a cup that has a hole in it. It's just gonna keep pouring. So it's like some people just they keep spending, keep spending, keep spending, keep spending versus preserving and growing what they have and making sure they don't lose the what they built. Because once you've built something, it's a completely different approach versus accumulating something. Because once you've built it, you could essentially just live on the asset that you built for the your entire life. Life's it's like the lifestyle inflation. Yeah, lifestyle inflation. It's like you don't really end up saving any more money even after you make more because you end up just spending on things that you might not necessarily need. And you make your life harder like that because a lot of times in order to make higher incomes, most of the time it's there's more risk involved, right? Whether you even look at the professional athlete side, they're only making that income, that extremely large income for 5, 10 year period, sometimes more, sometimes less, just depending on the athlete. Or if you're on the entrepreneur business side for people that are making like multiples of millions of dollars, they usually, they borrow money, there's debt, they have employees, they have higher overhead. So essentially you're taking a lot more risk than the average person and you're saving the same amount in terms of percentage, in terms of margin, right? So a lot of people don't realize, like, even though you're making this high income and technically on paper, yeah, I'm saving 10%, 20%. That's the mark for people that should save money. But actually, when you make more money, the percentage of money you save has to become higher in order to adjust for the risk that you're taking, if that makes sense, right? And a lot of people, yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. hmm And the smartest athletes and the smartest business owners, after they make that money, they're thinking about how do I live off of the interest or the cash flow that I'm making versus how do I live off of the harvest of like what I built, right? And spending that down until it goes to zero, right? Because you know, 4 or 5% of a number that's like ridiculous, like 20 million, 100 million, that's a lot of money. Like 4% of 100 million is is $4 million you get every single year. So that's a lot of money. And most people could live a pretty solid life with that, I would imagine. I would hope so, at least. But if you could think about it like that for someone, and there's guaranteed asset classes that can pay 4%. There are annuities. There's whole life insurance that can almost guarantee you 4%, and there's other ways you could essentially get that 4% rate of return on a tax advantage basis, where essentially you're not paying as much taxes, and you're also using that to kind of supplement your lifestyle in a way because you're just living off of the interest that you're getting from the asset that you're using, right? And with that, that's when you have an infinite loop of just never running out of money. When you actually, actually set yourself up like that. And that's really the cheat code when it comes to people that make extremely high incomes is living off the cash flow or the interest of the asset that you built. Separates it. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm actually honestly, I'm a big fan of whole life insurance when it comes to like professional athletes like this too as well, because like I heard someone say this and it makes me really think. What place can you save your money where it's guaranteed to go up every single year? And it's like when you think about someone with that much money, like really, there's two things that are going to be main concerns, right? Liquidity. Am I locking up my money? That's going to be one thing, and then guarantees, am I guaranteed to get a return? Right. So how safe will you feel if you're putting your money in a contract, all of your like a good chunk of your money in in a contract that's essentially you could have access to whenever you want, and also it guarantees a payment for you every single year. And that's one way to look at it if you want it to be the most conservative in terms of just the way you're approaching money. Because after a certain point of making a certain lump sum, whether you're a business owner, an athlete, whatever it is, you do want to take that approach and just really make sure that you're taking as little risk as possible. Obviously, if you're in a different situation where you're in the accumulation phase, it's different. You might need to be a little bit more aggressive. You might need to take a little bit more risks. So it all depends on where you're at. Obviously, this conversation is more geared towards um, what Fernando is doing in terms of like his career in the NFL and everything. And these are just things that you know, when you're a young kid, you might not think about, and it's like you get older, and you're like, oh wow, like I didn't know I could get a guarantee, 3 4% on my money, and essentially just live off the interest. But you think about it when the time passes versus when you're young and you make that type of money, because honestly, like who at that age is really thinking about financial planning and all that, especially people that played like sports and everything. Though, like they're not really thinking. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, even if a high yield like brokerage account with some of these places where there's like money markets where there's like no risk really or not much risk at all in these accounts, even if they make 4%, half of it is going to the government, especially if you're a higher income earner like some of these athletes. So having that tax advantage is very very important, right? So positioning yourself in that way is going to be beneficial for a lot of them in the future if they kind of know what to do and talk to the right people to get themselves set up. Um, nothing else. That we kind of got a good conversation on this. Probably good. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, financial underscore ownership. You could find me on Instagram and TikTok, and also financial space ownership. Two different words, no underscore. You could find me on Facebook and also YouTube too as well. Mm. Yep, no problem.